Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jay. Hey.
Good morning, Pierre.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What is it? Are we allowed to still say that 21 days into the year?
It's still January. Still January. So that's my rule of thumb is while we're still in January and you meet somebody for like almost like the first time in the year, you're allowed to say Happy New Year.
Wonderful. Well, Happy New Year to you too. It's been a while since we did this, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. The calendar turns. We get into 2022, and not a ton has changed between then and today. We've got some updates to share, but the world is still what the world is. We just got to keep moving forward and hope that we can stay, at the same speed as the rest of the world now.
Yeah, well, it's the speed at which things are developing is glacial, like the temperature outside right now. But also, uh, the fatigue is definitely there for online viewing. But so we would try to make it interesting. Um,
Keep it
did you have a
fresh.
good vacation?
I did. I took a little bit of time off. I had a birthday. You
Happy
know,
birthday!
thank you. Turned 43 years old. Got a lot of work done, around personal stuff. Enjoyed some time with my wife. Just took it easy. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't really do anything. And we had obviously a big surge of coronavirus here in New York City. So it meant kind of like locking it all down for a little while. And, luckily we're in a good place here that, compared to where we were about a month ago. And I'm very, very thankful for that.
Well, that's I had a good vacation too, except for the week of Christmas where I did catch the Rona, the human malware. So I
Yeah.
was out of commission for about a week. I don't wish that on anyone. Wasn't as
Yeah.
severe as some other folks that I know who have also caught it, but the difference is I'm fully vaccinated, so I did get it, and it was not pleasant, but it wasn't as severe as it could have been. So
Yeah, my wife got it. And somehow or another, I did not. I don't know how. Same house, same air, same bed, the whole 9 yards. Somehow or another, I didn't get it. Knock on wood. I must have like some really, really tough antibodies or something going on there. But hey, I heard there's some big news that just came out this week.
I was just gonna say, considering we all have to kind of isolate and stuff like that, the gaming industry's gone way up because what else are you gonna do when you can't go anywhere? It's to turn on the Xbox or your PC and load up your favorite game. And this week we can't go around that. We have to talk about that news that Xbox or Microsoft is buying Activision.
Yeah, big deal because like there's so many super popular games that are part of that acquisition. Overwatch, Diablo, Call of Duty, of course, Warcraft, which I feel like has just been around forever. Candy Crush for you, like who want to sit there and do it on your phone, and then StarCraft, which is another one that I feel like people have been playing that since like '92.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable, but yeah, big deal. Something like $68 billion with a B, folks.
$1 billion.
Yeah, crazy. I know Phil Spencer, who's the CEO of gaming, said, we're going to build a future, build the games you want. I know the head of Xbox said that also any commitments with Sony are going to be, still
Honored.
respected
Yep.
and honored because they need to, help the gaming industry thrive regardless of platform. So
It,
that
it
was a very cool thing to see.
yeah, it was great. And you mentioned COD. I'm part of a group online called BNG. So no, was it Bad Gamers United? BGU, Bad
Hmm.
Gamers United. where we kind of go online every once in a while and do like game parties where we trash talk each other more than we trash talk our other teams, and have a beverage of some kind. And so that has helped me go through the pandemic. But how about we get to the news?
Sure, sure.
So
So for
we've
go for it.
had we've got quite a few weeks off, and there's been a lot of announcements since like the week after Christmas. So we had to kind of pick and choose what we want. And you went with I think Postgres. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Anyone that knows me personally knows that open source databases are near and dear to my heart. I really kind of spent a lot of time around another open source database, and Postgres is still, when you're talking about important, uh, big technologies that people really rely on, Postgres is there. And so a couple years ago, we bought a company named Citus that make hyperscale version of Postgres. It's a software as a service or a platform as a service, whichever way you want to describe it. So, what's the IT pro kind of fit here? Well, anybody that knows that they have to have some data governance or compliance when it comes to your application has been through the process of certification, especially of the data centers, the data platform, at-rest data, things like that. And so Microsoft announced that Azure can now say that it's been certified to be compliant with APRA, the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, the DPP, Digital Production Partnership out of the UK, the Prudential Regulation Authority, all the way down to the Motion Picture Association. So, there are a lot of big groups that have now essentially said this is a platform that you can run on that meets our standards. Yep. And if you don't know much about it, there's some great documentation around the Citus service. It's built for Azure, this particular version. It allows a horizontal scale across multiple machines, sharding, so you can partition out your data. It parallelizes incoming SQL queries across the servers for faster responses on large data sets. So, let's say you have a huge data set relating to your customer relations software or customer relationship software. You'll be able to quickly access it, index it, get all the scaling that you need. Excellent support for multi-tenant apps, real-time operational for those of you who might have something like SignalR and you need to have a data source and you're doing real-time applications. So you're using standard connection libraries. So it's not like you have to create your databases and access them with a special one. No, you're using what you're already using. You're just going ahead, you're migrating your data into a platform that you don't have to manage anymore. Yeah. So for those of you who are interested and you have some governance and other issues that need to be met in order to be compliant, here is a service for you. Someone made a service just for you.
Yep. And I'm always concerned because in some of my previous roles, I had to deal with a lot of like the Bank of Canada, for example, was one of my accounts that I dealt with. And every time they're looking at a project and they're making decisions, and that's just an example. I'm not saying that that's what they're actually doing right now, in case they're listening. You're looking at the technology and you say, "Ooh, this is the best scenario for us in terms of technology." If you're looking at stuff like the compliance in that particular industry, if you don't have the SEC and the OSFI and all of the other compliance, you can't use that technology in that industry for banking or for financial services. So the fact that we've all of a sudden provided, I think, is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 10 new certifications on top of the ones we already had. Speaks volume as to the how secure and how well managed that offering is. So
Yeah, and
opens up so many doors.
anybody who's been through the process of getting something certified, like, I've done PCI a number of times in the past for, credit card transactions and personal
Exactly.
information. It takes forever. It's a lot of work. The audit process is really, really intense. So to know that we had all these different types of certificates that are now adding, compliance to this particular product, that's big news.
It is.
So what do we got next, Pierre?
Next, we have Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor, actually, this month for Azure Monitor, there are probably like 6 or 7 different announcements, but we only have half an hour, so I had to kind of pick a couple that I thought were really good. And number one is what's generally available is a new improved rule creation experience. So if anybody's ever had to create rules and alerts for log analytics, or as it's known now, because we love switching names of our products for no particular reason, Azure Monitor logs, the process was not the most friendly. You have to go create your query here. You got to like link it to here and then create your action group here. And then what you're going to do with it. Like, it wasn't like the most straightforward process. And a lot of people kind of complained about that. We've heard the feedback. So they went back and they revisited how it is. And now it's actually been pulled out from a form that you fill out and you have to know exactly what you're putting into the form, to now it's a wizard. So a wizard will now allow you to create your alerts, your rules and your alerts much more straightforward and simplified. So that's the number one not notification, but the announcements coming out of Azure Azure
Yeah.
Monitor. Sorry.
And of course, if you're not really that familiar with Azure Monitor, this is another platform as a service for monitoring, so that you don't have to go ahead and configure monitoring on your own. You can monitor applications based on whatever runtime you're using. So if you want to get information about .NET, Java, Node.js performance, you name it, there's SDKs that'll allow you to slurp data in, take a look. You can monitor your infrastructure, which is always super important. So you can keep monitoring data on your VMs, your Kubernetes clusters, your storage, your database. And then, of course, we don't talk a lot about it nowadays because we just assume that things are going to work, and that's network. So you can do network monitoring, so you can diagnose issues that may happen with your VMs. You can get packet capture. Sometimes that's super, super needed when you're having, say, an application being DDoSed. You can analyze security group flow logs to see what's being permitted and what's being denied, and just gain some visibility over your entire network that you have deployed for Azure. And so, the big keys for Azure Monitor are insights, so you can find out how your applications, containers, VMs, monitoring solutions are running. You can visualize everything with dashboards, views. You can import it into Power BI or workbooks. You can set up responding services for alerts and to trigger autoscale function. And then you can integrate this service into, say, event hubs. You can use logic apps so that you can actually kick off, say, runbooks or something like that. And you can ingest and export APIs. So if you need to gain insight to your from your data on how your applications, your servers, your networks are performing, better to use a service that is tried and true and trusted and put through the ringer to make sure that it's always working, always available to you, and able to integrate with all your favorite tools. So if you're using Grafana, InfluxDB, Datadog or Splunk. Let's say you're doing multi-cloud, you need to be able to aggregate into all these different services. You can just set it up.
Yeah, but even with the multi-cloud, with Azure Arc, so Azure Arc for server, Azure Arc for databases and for containers and stuff like that, you through Azure Arc, you can centralize all of your logs and monitoring into Azure Monitor. So it is really a perfect hybrid monitoring platform, and it's also a platform that's used by other Microsoft Azure services like Sentinel uses log analytics, but in the background. So it underpins a lot of other services. So it's really, really important. The other piece of news about Azure Monitor is that they regularly release updates to the Azure Monitor umbrella service. So in this case, particular Azure Log Alerts, the version for logs. You can now also have a lot more resource centric alerting, the rules management at scale. So you can have thousands of rules. I know that if you have a large corporation, you probably have thousands of rules. It gets a little harder to manage when you got that many. So they've improved that experience. And of course, as I mentioned, the wizard-based alert creation experience. So lots and lots of new functionality in Azure Monitor to benefit everybody and anyone using it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who need another service that'll help keep your websites online, highly available, and doesn't need a ton of infrastructure configuration, there's a new announcement for enterprise grade static web app service. So Azure Static Web Apps, it's in a public preview to give you enterprise grade edge capabilities. So if you want to increase your website's page load speed, enhance security, optimize reliability for your global apps, this is the service for you. It combines capabilities of Azure Static Web Apps, Azure Front Door, and Azure Content Delivery Network, that the CDN service, to a single secure cloud CDN platform. There's some new key features, and so I think one of the biggest ones is that global presence, 118 plus edge locations. We want to be able to have our static apps, because the whole point is they should load quickly, they should access APIs fast. So having that 118 plus edge locations, because the Azure network is so well distributed across the planet, just only adds to your reliability of your application. Proactive protection against DDoS. So, I mentioned before, DDoSs happen. They could happen to you.
Yep.
And when a DDoS does happen, the mitigation process can be quite difficult. I remember having to set up like a reverse kind of proxy to be able to capture certain packets so that we didn't get DDoSs on our applications. This was years and years ago. We had to do everything manually. Nowadays, we've got these services that can just, oh yeah, I noticed a ton of incoming SYN floods on your application, or someone's trying to do what like a ping of death, which is whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
People have that proactive protection nowadays without having to do it themselves. It's a turnkey process. And then for those of you who have reached into the IPv6 world or the HTTP2 protocol world, and I know you're out there, there is native support for end-to-end connectivity for both, which is big because it's what, like 2022. We've been told for like the last 15 years that IPv6 is the next big thing. So whether you're really paying attention to IPv6 or not, it's really important for you to know, as far as a business, that you can make sure that this is ready for your IPv6 connections. Like, I know, like, personally, my router goes IPv6 first from my home computer.
Internally?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and the external, like if I try to do like a what is my IP address, like it'll always default to IPv6 first. for that external. Finding out what my IPv4 can be like, all right, a couple of things that I have to do. But you know, let's compare it to the way things were. A lot of times back in the day, as we used to say, if you needed to remote into your home computer, you needed to know the IP, IPv6, all that, and that wasn't really a big problem. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. There's a lot of new great things that you can use with Azure Static Web Apps. It's a service that automatically builds and deploys full stack web apps to Azure from code repos. So, you basically can use almost like a GitOps workflow of making a change, having it trigger a new build, and then having it run through either actions or GitHub pipelines to build your app. It supports a lot of static site generators that will help you kind of put some scaffolding. You can build apps with Angular, React, Svelte, Vue, Blazor, all these things that you typically would have to spin up a server to have load, and then have to configure a CDN, then have to configure any sort of reliability services like a load balancer. Not anymore. Front door turnkey, CDN turnkey, authentication services. They're right built in. So if you need to have some sort of auth before people go into the site, you can use it there.
Yeah.
So
I'm really excited mostly about the front door part of it. I find that it makes the managing the end user experience or the stakeholder experience connecting to your app, where they connect to the closest endpoint to them. The fact that you can manage where your application can get accessed from. So if you've got any kind of regulations where it can't be accessed outside of your country, for example, you can deal with that. All of that good stuff in front door is
I
now
wanted to
going.
just show this really quickly. You can see this is kind of what it looks like in a traditional front door configuration, where you've got your website, your edge location, and all these different regions within the network that front door manages. So adding that into your IT solution just makes it a little bit stronger, makes it capable of having additional reliability. And I always like to say reliability is your reputation. So making sure that you're available, you're reliable. People, that's what they want.
Yep. And speaking of reliability, we know that, and everybody on the because I'm looking like Andrew, Jared, Paul, and Diggs BTW from on Twitch. If you're in IT, you know that nothing is 100% guaranteed. So you got to make sure that you're covered. You got to make sure that you've got your data replicated, that you have a good business continuity plan, that you have also a good backup. And over the holidays, I flattened my machine, and I thought I had a good backup of all my drives. Turned out I missed one. So I failed, and now I'm going to learn from that, and I've adjusted my backup routine. But Azure Backup is one that regularly also provides update. And this month, what Azure Backup has provided is an updated way to automate the backup procedures on your in your environment. So they've released a whole bunch of commandlets and CLI updates that you can run your backup, schedule your backup, restore your backup. Like all of the management of the backup of each machines can now be much more straightforward when you're looking at scripting that environment. So if you have an environment where you're going to be scripting or you're doing, and I know some people that what they do when they have so their critical systems, they, as part of their patching routine, for example, right before a patch, they do a backup or an image backup of that machine. So doing that, but now it can be scripted a lot more easily. So It's not a huge news, but it's something if you've had to script the management of your backup and restore for all of your environments, it's going to be significant in terms of impact on your life. So, oh, and Andrew says also that
Oh,
oops, yeah, ransomware as well. So when you have to like bypass, if you bypass some backup procedures, you'd set them up for them, and it's going to help a lot.
I have seen some really nasty ransom situations with open source databases where they didn't close up their network connectivity. They didn't add authentication, and because of that, it said, "Hey, if you want your data, you got to send us like X amount of Bitcoin." Uh, and certain companies that this happened to, they simply didn't have backups of their entire database, and they maybe it's because they didn't know how to get it done. Maybe they thought, oh, well, this is going to degrade performance, or this is cheaper, we don't want to pay for the backup. Well, you paid for not having the backup.
You
You know
always
what I mean?
pay. The bill always comes due.
Yeah, and a lot of times that can kill a business. You can lose all your customer information. You can lose anything all you need to do when you get something deployed, and you're taking traffic. You've got to consider what happens if this goes away, if this fails, if this has a bad insert,
Yep.
your database becomes unusable. What do you do?
Yep.
And so having backup services, especially native backup services within Azure, really, really tremendously important. So we wanted to give some shout out to some really cool things that are going on in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them that I thought was really interesting is Open Source Day that Microsoft's going to be doing. It's Tuesday, February 15th. It's all virtual, and it's a digital event that's committed to open source. It's going to celebrate one of the 30th anniversary of Linux, because Microsoft loves Linux. So you're going to find out how to optimize your Linux performance. Go ahead.
But for our Windows friends out there, Microsoft still loves Windows as well.
Oh yeah, those licenses certainly make it so. There's developer tools, open source database talks, the latest on AKS. Like I know Brendan Burns, he's going to be one of the speakers. Sarah Novotny is the director of open source strategy and ecosystem. She's got a talk, and then the actual keynote is by our own wonderful Satya Nadella, who's going to share some of that information about that 30th anniversary of Linux.
Very, very cool. I'm actually quite interested. I've actually blocked that time off in my calendar. Of course, that can change, but of course, I'll probably be able to watch it in replay. But that time has been. I'm registered, and so if you were interested, go register yourselves. Well,
and then we're also another shout out. I want to do it real quick is to Johnny Chips himself. Check out, he's got these little great interviews that he does. He does news updates about Azure and DevOps and all these different subjects. I really enjoy what he's doing. I just wanted to give a little community shout out to him. He loves to be able to do his own community shout outs, and I thought I would just reciprocate. So thank you, Johnny. I hope to be talking with you soon.
Yes. And John, we've had actually Johnny on our show, not this particular show, the show that's later this afternoon, testing and production, which is today at noon with Jared. Jared is in the chat at the moment. So Jared and I will be discussing some stream content and all kinds of shenanigans. So if you want to join us, it's today at noon Eastern time, 9 Pacific. I'm not quite sure what time that is in the Europes, but I'm sure you can figure it out.
Check it out, everybody. And then, of course, we always do our module of the week for Microsoft Learn, a place to get free education on different Microsoft products, services. And this week, we're showing the introduction to Azure Front Door. I thought it was timely. check out how to actually know when to use front door, how to use front door, why you would use front door. So take a look at this module. I think you'll really get a lot out of it. You'll figure out how you can use WAF, web application firewall, things like that, to just help reliability and security of your website.
The way I look at it, if you have any workload that is exposed to the internet, Azure Front Door can be of benefit to you in terms of controlling the access to it, making sure that the experience is great. As you mentioned, DDoS mitigation and all that stuff. Azure Front Door is something that we should, as operations, in terms of making sure that our systems are operational and accessible at all time, is a great thing. So I really recommend that you go and try that one out if you have not already. But if you haven't, go check it out anyway. All right.
Cool. So hey, we're right at the end of it, huh?
That's right. And I'd like to say thank you to the chat for joining us again this morning. So Andrew, Jared, Paul, and our boss, Mr. Claus, is now in the chat room as well. And thank you, Jay, for joining me again this week. And we will see you next week.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
See ya.